That's right. Greg Gabriel is here to talk about the NFL.
You like that heavy metal stuff for those leadings, huh?
I figured that suited you, right?
Oh, no, I'm a blues guy.
Oh, really?
I'm a blues and classic rock.
I didn't know that you were a blues guy. I
big
would have
time.
picked some Muddy Water.
Big time.
Who are your favorite blues artists?
Clapton, by far.
He's the best.
Yep.
He's the best. Whenever you talk
I've seen Clapton 6 times, I think.
Is that right? Holy cow!
Just love him.
He's great. He's great. Well, and
you want to read a good book? Read his autobiography.
Oh, really? Is that good?
Oh, super.
Oh, good. I'll check it out. I love reading autobiographies about movie stars and rock and roll and musicians, I should say, music artists.
The other one, Keith Richards' autobiography called Life. That's outstanding, too.
Mm-hmm. The Fantasy Football Goon guy says the John Mayer trio is so good. You know them?
I know John Mayer. John Mayer plays with the Grateful Dead now. He had his regular John Mayer rock group, and then he had the blues group, which was, the trio. Yeah, they were outstanding, except I don't know if he does much with them anymore. They may. I just haven't seen it.
Well, I love blues, but I'm not a aficionado of it. But I love going to blues clubs and stuff. So I'm going to have to start digging out some of these songs and stuff that you guys are talking about. I didn't even know the John Mayer trio. So we'll do some research on that. Greg,
well, you go back. I know we're supposed to be talking football, but we go back. There was that. It's got to be 10 years old now, where he did the concert in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he really did it in 2 segments, and actually 3 segments. He did an acoustic segment, then he does a segment with the trio doing blues, and then he does a segment with the John Mayer band.
So
it was like 3 separate concerts in one. Then he took a break in between each one, changed his clothes.
Well, that means I'm going to be buying a ticket to a John Mayer concert. That's all.
But he doesn't do that for every kind. He did it for that particular thing.
I see.
And it was, there's DVDs of it.
The last concert I went to, I took my daughter to see Paul Simon for his last concert here in Chicago, because apparently he's retired, and she and I had a fabulous, fabulous time. So hopefully with this pandemic, we can start going to music concerts, events and all that stuff. And you just had a trip to Florida, right? How was the commute there and back? Did they search you and make sure you were vaccinated and all that stuff?
It's a pain in the ass with me now that I got a false knee is that it's titanium. I set off all the alarms with the metal. They checked. They checked me like I'm a terrorist or something. They pat me down, and it was both times going down to Florida and coming back.
That's wild.
And I tell them beforehand. I said, "Hey, I got a redone knee here. It's titanium."
Nothing but the best for you.
Well, that's how they make them.
That's wild. All right, let's start talking some football here. Before we start talking about individual players and getting your evaluation on everyone from Justin Fields to a couple of the undrafted free agents, overall, are you pleased with the way Ryan Pace approached this? And what I mean is trading up in the second round, trading up in the first round. Are you pleased with the maneuverations? I'm not even sure that's a word, but the maneuvers and
you made one up. Although
again,
no, I like it. Okay, and you could, and I could put myself in a college director seat that I was, and. If this was Jerry and I, we'd have that discussion, because I would automatically take the opposite side of the argument just to make sure we wash everything out. And so, okay, you're going to trade up in the second round. And you're giving up your third rounder. Well, what could we have gotten had we stayed at, 52, and they moved up to 39. So they moved up 13 spots.
Right.
So what were we going to get at 52, and what could we get at the third round pick versus what we're getting by moving up? So you got to have that discussion.
Right.
Okay. And you might say, well, we still might have got a starting tackle at 52, and the way the draft flowed, I think they could have gotten that North Dakota State tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and but you don't have a first round grade on him. You got a solid first round grade on Tevin Jenkins. Okay, so to me, that's a no brainer. You're substituting quantity for quality. Okay, and so and we'll, as we get into this broadcast, we'll get into the what's good about them, etc. But yeah, so that part's good. And then yeah, you gave up next year's one to move up. Everybody knew he wanted to do it. We talked about it in our pre-draft show. I was very skeptical if he could do it. And the main reason being is that they were at 20. Who the hell wants to go down to 20? Well, here's what happens. And the first key is that everybody thought Mac Jones was going to the 49ers. At least the media did.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, there were other people between 4 and 10 that were ready to jump all over Trey Lance.
Right.
When Trey Lance went, that changed the whole focus of that first part of the first round and actually opened things up for a guy like Justin Fields to be available at 11.
Mm-hmm.
If Mac Jones goes, we might not have that trade. We might not have Justin Fields today.
Interesting. And do you get a sense that the Bears and the Giants talked prior to the draft and said, hey, if this happens, if that happens, or do you think it might have been kind of a spontaneous thing given the way the draft?
I guarantee you he probably started with Cincinnati and worked his way back.
Mm-hmm.
And Cincinnati wasn't going to trade. Then you go to Miami, probably a possibility if the right guy wasn't there for them. You get in Detroit, they said they talked to teams, but they wanted Sewell. And when Sewell was still there for them, I had Cincinnati taken Sewell, Detroit might have traded out. And so I'm sure they talked to the Giants, but what opened this up for Gettleman to make a trade is, and I talked to Dave after the draft, is when Philadelphia moved in front of him to take Smith, the wide receiver from Alabama.
Right.
That was their guy. Okay, so now they had a big grade gap between Smith and the next receiver, and they wanted to get a receiver, an outside receiver, not an inside guy.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they had a gap in grades between Smith and the next guy, who happened to be Tony, who they took. And the way the board fell, they ended up getting the next receiver. No receiver went in between. So, yeah, was it a gamble on his part? Yeah, but he looked at it. I'm getting a 2022 first, probably going to be a pretty good one. That's what he's thinking.
Right.
And it's going to be a better draft. Number one, we're going to have a lot more, we're going to be back to normal as far as scouting. And so the chances are we're going to have a bigger pool to pick from. What I understand, he felt comfortable about 150 players in this draft. And that was it. So, and there's some teams that did very little in post-draft free agency because the pool wasn't that good. There's kids that went back to school. The FCS level kids, they just played in the spring. You didn't have any information on them as far as medicals and stuff like that, except for the kids, the few that opted out. And so you took, and those guys can go, I'll go back next year and play again in the fall. So it just made the pool probably 20%, 25% smaller than it is in a normal year.
Right. Yeah. Apparently, lots of people are saying just the quality of players and starting around, 5th, 6th, 7th round, I guess, in day 3 just really started to drop off because the pool of players available was reduced from previous years. So that was
but part of that, you got to look at it this way. How's your board set up?
Yeah.
It might look great for one team and awful for another team.
Correct.
Depending on how your board goes.
Right. Yeah, you've been tweeting about how boards can differentiate between team to team dramatically, right?
All the time.
That's
all
amazing.
the time. And it's not really amazing. It's how you look at people. What kind of player are you looking for?
There you go.
And more on the defensive side than the offensive side.
Yeah.
Because of scheme fit, etc. So, like the mammoth nose tackle, who was a 2-gapper, 3-minute. He's not necessarily going to be a fit down in Houston, where Lovey is now the defensive coordinator.
Right.
So so it's a lot of that has to do, and then your linebackers are asked to do different things between a 3-4 and a 4-3.
And so, Greg, I know teams do things differently. So, but is a guy like that, would he be on Lovey's board if he just doesn't fit into the system?
No, when I was with Lovey, no, didn't even have him on the board.
Scratch him out, huh? Interesting. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. All right, let's get into evaluations of the draft class. Obviously, we have to start with Justin Fields. The national media is raving about this player. Local people are raving about Justin Fields. Is Greg Gabriel raving about Justin Fields?
Yeah, no, I love the pick. Like I said just a few minutes ago, I know they wanted to be able to move up to get a quarterback. Figured it'd either be Fields or Jones, one or the other. I just didn't, like I said, I was skeptical that it could happen because of where they were. I think that it just, like I said earlier, because the North Dakota Lance went at number 3. Right. That helped the whole situation tremendously. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think they started working at 5 or 6. And, during the week, making calls, mm-hmm. and the Giants lost their guy. They traded down. The Bears took them. Everybody's happy. I'll tell you, going back to the fall, I wasn't as high, and I hadn't done as much in-depth work, mm-hmm. on Fields as I am now. And part of it was, and it's part of the negativism that you see on him, across the country from some analysts, is he gets banged because the other Ohio State quarterback sucked when they got to the NFL. That's not fair.
That's not fair.
Okay, he's Justin Fields. He's not Haskins,
mm-hmm.
who's a fat, lazy guy.
Mm-hmm.
He barely made it through his pro day. Haskins did. He's not the other guys from Ohio State that Cardelli, he doesn't have great football character, thinks he's a lot better than he is. He doesn't process fast. We had him in DC, so I know exactly what he is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting banged for that. And they're saying the offense. Well, the offense is the offense. You only can play what the coaches give you to play.
Right.
Okay, but now you look at the numbers, and I tweeted out some of these numbers the other day, and I don't have them all in front of me. Okay. But how about using a comparison between Mahomes, Watson, and Fields their last 2 years in college?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who had the highest passing percentage, completion percentage? Justin Fields, by about 2 points over those two guys.
Right.
Watson, his last 2 years at Clemson, threw 30 interceptions. Mahomes' last 2 years at Texas Tech, 25 interceptions. Fields' last 2 years at Ohio State, 9.
Amazing.
That's a huge difference. Okay, completed percentage of more balls. He threw less passes. Texas Tech throws on every down.
Mm-hmm.
He had his touchdown to interception ratio was in 2 years, and really the second year is it wasn't a complete season. I think he played 10 games or something versus if it had been a normal season and they went as far as the playoffs, that it would have been another 5 games or 4 games. He still threw 63 touchdown passes in his last 2 years versus only 9 interceptions. That ratio is exceptional.
Yeah, I just put it up on the screen. I found your tweet. And so the numbers over the last 2 years, Fields, 25 games played, a completion percentage of 68.4 compared to Watson, who his was 67%. And Mahomes was 64.9%. And then you measure the touchdowns, 63 touchdowns for Fields, 76 for Watson, and 77 for Mahomes. And then interceptions, only 9 for Fields, 30 for Watson, and 25 for Mahomes. Pretty compelling numbers in Fields' favor.
Yeah, no. And so, and then you watch him play and people say, well, he goes the first guy too much. Well, number one, the first guy's open a lot. But that's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. Can you play that one over?
Sure.
Okay, you watch the start of it. He looks left, middle, and then to the right. And then he throws to the right.
There you go.
Don't tell me he doesn't go through a progression.
Yep.
And when you're watching a quarterback, Aldo, you've got to have that end zone tape because that tells you what he's doing with his head.
You get a better
what he's looking at it. Yeah, you can't necessarily see it when you're looking at the sideline view.
Right. Yeah. And here's another great angle. This time he was looking at his primary receiver and he knew he was going to be open because of the coverage and he just stayed with him.
Right.
And then he does a great job of just picking up yards with his feet too.
Yeah. When's the last time we had a quarterback run a 4.46?
Vince Evans, maybe? I don't know.
No, the Baltimore quarterback, Jackson, he didn't time. So we don't know what his speed is because I looked it up the other day just to see what it was.
Yeah.
But this guy ran a legitimate. He only ran once. He might have run faster the second time had he done it again. Didn't do the other stuff, but just an exceptional athlete. And he's built. He's put together.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of quarterbacks that use Jones as an example. Jones is better than Tom Brady looked coming out of college, but not by a whole lot. Yeah. Okay, and you look at Justin Fields. That dude's put together now. He's jacked up.
He really is.
Okay, so don't tell me you can't tell me that he's lazy and he doesn't work because you don't get a body like that naturally.
Absolutely. I mean, that Dan Orlovsky was fed some really bad information, and he should have double-checked it, triple-checked it before going public with it. I thought it was irresponsible of what he did. But let me ask you this. What are the concerns that you would have as a scout, as a director of personnel about Justin Fields? Anything that you've seen or maybe heard that you would say, okay, well, he's not 100% perfect. This is a concern. Anything?
Know what the concern is? Don't play him too fucking soon.
Okay.
Because that's the worst thing you can do to a young quarterback is play him too early and let him get killed in the first few games, make a lot of mistakes, and it kills his confidence. And he starts to be a tentative player. You watch his Ohio State tape. He likes hitting home runs.
Yeah, he does.
He's going for that deep ball, and he's real accurate with it. So, I got no problem with that. Yeah, you could say that he goes to his number one a lot, but when the number one's open, so what?
Yeah, right.
What are you supposed to do? Go to another guy who's not, and when that guy's open and that's your primary receiver, that's counterproductive.
Ravi in the chat room says, what do you think about Fields' delivery? Do you have any concerns with that?
It might be a little bit long, but he still gets it out of his hand. He makes a decision and he gets the ball out of his hand. Now, the guy with the quickest delivery in the draft is Mac Jones.
Yeah.
He has got a lightning quick delivery.
Would
And
you?
that's one of the reasons I think, he's very, very smart too. Very
Yeah.
smart, very instinctive, processes very quickly. I think he's going to be a great pro. What he isn't is what a lot of people are looking for is that guy who's going to make and extend plays with his feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let us get now to the second round pick. And now there's a lot of onus on this guy because Charles Leno Jr. was released by the Chicago Bears. And so Tevin Jenkins, who the Chicago Bears traded up for in the second round, drafted 39th overall out of Oklahoma State. What have you seen? What have you heard about Jenkins? Do you think he's capable of being a plug and play left tackle?
Yes. He's number one. He has started 7 games, maybe 8 at left tackle at Oklahoma State. It's not new to him. Now you look at his numbers. I got a comparison here.
Okay.
Who's supposed to be the best left tackle in the draft?
Penei Sewell.
Okay. Penei Sewell had a 179.10, a 509.40, a 28-inch vertical jump, 30 reps in the bench, 468 in the 20 shuttle, 776 in the 3 cone. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Tevin Jenkins, he ran 498. He had a 468 in the 20 shuttle, the exact same time as Sewell. 769 in the 3 cone versus 776. He had a 32.5 vertical jump, which is remarkable for an offensive lineman. 2.5 inches farther. His 10 was 177 versus 179 for Sewell, and 36 reps in the bench. Tell me you can't play left tackle.
Well, based on that, but what does the tape tell you? Have you seen enough?
Yeah, he you know what it is? I'm going to go back a little bit here.
Okay.
Little story. 1988 draft, I believe it was. I was working for the Giants, and we wanted to shore up the offensive line. So in the first round, we take a very, very athletic, natural left tackle from Indiana by the name of Eric Moore. Okay, and Eric was like a 5 flat and a 40, weighed coming out 295, 298, long arms. We didn't measure arms then, but he had long arms. His really quick feet, could slide. It's like that's the guy you want at left tackle. And the second round, we come back with John Jumbo Elliott from Michigan. Jumbo, and I had to work out all these guys. We have this thing we called the box, and it was really, it's outdated now, but we were ahead of the time back then. And we were doing drills like the 3 cone before they did the 3 cone at the combine with this thing, and it was all electronically timed.
Right.
So, and I would go, that was my job, to go around all the top prospects and work them out with this thing. So to go to Michigan, Jumbo Elliott weighed about 310. He's 6'7". At Indy, now back then they had AstroTurf surface. And everybody would, because they're running on AstroTurf, and AstroTurf was extremely fast because it was hard, you would adjust the time to grass being the common denominator. So he ran a 4.46 on AstroTurf. When you adjust it, it's a 5.56. You add a tenth. Some teams added a tenth and a half. We added a tenth. But everybody added at least a tenth. So he's a 5.40 guy. Can't do anything anywhere close to what this guy does. And, non-athletic, if you want to look at it like that. We get him. He ends up being the natural left tackle, multi-time Pro Bowler, all-time great Giant left tackle, and Eric Moore's on the right side.
How about that?
Okay. So, and it's like the first day of rookie mini camp, you saw it because he was so good coming out of his stance. And it's the quickness is involved in it, but it's also understanding angles.
Yeah.
And having that footwork down so that you can cut off the wide speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Tevin, it's not going to be new to him. He started 7 or 8 games at that position. He's practiced at that position. Mm-hmm. So, the difference between the right side and the left side is you do everything in reverse. Mm-hmm. As far as your footwork, your hand placement and stuff, it's just a matter of getting that down. But here's the question I'll ask. Do you think the Bears would have even thought about cutting Charles Leno the day after the draft if they didn't think this guy could play left tackle?
Well, clearly they do, and or they have a veteran left tackle.
I don't believe that, because Charles Leno plays winning football. He has a couple, maybe a couple bad plays a game. He got beat on an outside in move that everybody saw and gave up a sack in one game because he overset to the outside. The guy came across the back, came across his face and got an easy sack. But his overall football wasn't too bad when you grade him out. And he wasn't making a ton. He was making good money, but not great left tackle money.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you still got to, and they got, let's face it, Bears got cap problems. They go out and sign one of these other guys, it's going to cost some money. And is it going to be better than the young rookie? Is he going to be better than Charles Leno? You're better off keeping Charles Leno. So I don't believe that for a second. That Fisher's visiting the Colts today. He's coming off. It's not like he tore his Achilles in October. He tore it in the playoffs.
That's right.
Okay, so he's only 3.5 months out of tearing his Achilles now, or having the surgery. Who said he's going to be ready even when the season starts?
Right.
And you're going to give him a bunch of money? Probably the best guy that was out there, and he actually had a deal done a couple weeks ago, but the Ravens didn't want to make it official, so he wouldn't count the compensatory computations. Is Alejandro, if that's how you say it, or Villanueva rather, who was with Pittsburgh,
right?
And then they signed him yesterday, gave him a 2-year deal.
What about Russell Okung? Do you think he's got anything left?
I think his tank's probably got a quarter fill, if that.
Ravi has a really good question here. Getting back to Tevin Jenkins, we all know how he's got this mean, nasty streak and so forth. And Ravi says, can a tackle be too aggressive? Can that be a bad thing? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think in the run game, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I want to impose my will on my opponent. Well, that's a good thing. Yeah. Beat him up early. I mean, the old thing is, knock him in the face the first play.
Mm-hmm.
Let him know you're ready to play. And I see nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. As long as it's clean.
Right. Well, and there's been a lot of talk that the Bears offensive line was kind of meek. They didn't have that killer edge, and adding a guy like Jenkins could help, correct me if I'm wrong, change the complexion of that offensive line. So they get a little more snarly. You worked with Olin Kreutz a lot, and
there's been comparisons with this guy with Olin, as far as demeanor. Now,
right.
I've never met the guy. I can't tell you that. He looks like he's a little more mild-mannered, just from seeing pictures of him and videos of him than Olin is. But if he's even half of that, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the next guy they took was Borum. He's the same kind of player. He's just not the athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on now to the third person selected in this draft, another offensive tackle, and that's Larry Borom from Missouri, 151st player taken overall. What have you seen and heard about this guy?
Well, like I just said, he's similar to Jenkins in that he's a very aggressive player.
Mm-hmm.
He's strong. Now, the difference in bench is 15 reps. He did 21 reps, and Jenkins did 36.
Mm-hmm.
But the fallacy in that, especially with offensive linemen, is the bench press helps your power with your punch,
Mm-hmm.
but your power to move people off the ball is your lower body. It's your ass, your thighs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is playing with some bend and snapping your hips, and that's where all that power from your lower body comes. He's Jerry Reese used, I think I said this on the last show. Reese used to use the term seat smasher.
Mm-hmm.
He's a seat smasher. He got a big, wide ass.
Mm-hmm.
So and personally, I think he probably might end up at guard. His arms are measured a little bit shorter. I think they're a little over 33. Jenkins was 33 and a half. Now, go back to the last show we did. I think a lot of these arm measurements are off. Very, very inconsistent. And I had a chat with one GM. In fact, it was Scott Fitterer. I worked with Scott in New York for a number of years before he went out to West Coast to Seattle.
Right.
And, he drafted that Christensen kid from BYU.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I guarantee he's got longer arms than 32 and a half. But that's just what they got this year. They didn't have the consistency because you had no combine.
Right.
And you remember how I showed you it's got to be done exactly right, or it can be off a half inch, 3/4 of an inch.
Right. And every fraction of an inch counts, right?
Well, yeah, but if you got 33, you're all right. That's your bare minimum, and Jenkins is 33 and a half.
Right.
Okay, so probably reality is 34.
And Borom is 33 and 1/8.
Right. But he doesn't have the movement skill. That's another guy with a big vertical jump. When you see offensive linemen with a high vertical jump, that shows explosiveness. And he's a guy, he had 30-inch vertical jump. You don't see offensive linemen get up 30 inches that often.
Mm-hmm. What about wingspan? How important is that to you?
Well, the wingspan, put it this way, the wingspan is exact.
Mm-hmm.
You can't screw that up. You got your hands out like this and they're going middle finger to middle finger.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But now the width of a guy's torso plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, ideally, you want the wingspan to be longer than his height.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's 6'4", that's 76 inches, you want 78, 79-inch wingspan at least.
Yeah. Well, both of these guys have at least 80, so that's good news.
Right.
What for you is the most important metric when looking at offensive linemen? Is it the arm length? Is it what is it? The cone drill? I don't know. What?
Well, I mean, it's a combination, but the first thing I look at is arm length.
Okay.
Because a short arm guy can't play outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love Liam Eichenberg
for
Notre Dame.
Right.
He measured 32 and 3/8.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said it last show. There's one tackle in the league right now, starting, that has arms less than 33 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Braden Smith with the Colts, plays right tackle. And he was drafted to play guard because he had short arms.
Mm. Interesting. All right. So let's now move to round 6. The Bears had 3 selections. Then they started with Khalil Herbert, the running back out of Virginia Tech, the 217th overall pick. This guy is fast, right?
Yeah, he's a sub 4.5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
You get down to the 6th round, you got to get lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's no givens.
Right.
If they, if they make your team, it's almost a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, and I honestly feel this is that all four of these guys are going to make the team. The 3 6s and the 7th.
Interesting.
Herbert has limited touches as a receiver, but he's got top instincts as a runner. He's strong. You can see that he's got cutting ability. He can jump cut. He can find a lane. See there?
Yeah.
I mean, that perfect example right there. He can make people miss out in the open. And on top of that, he can return kicks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that as a whole, with Cordarrelle Patterson being gone, and really you got a hole at both return spots because Patterson's gone, who's your kickoff guy. Cohen's back, but do you want to put him back there again after that knee injury?
Yeah.
Because that took away what was it, the second game of the season that they lose their punt returner and a key part of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So he might not see a punt return again the rest of his career, or at least his career in Chicago. But given the fact that this guy can return kickoffs, I think helps him. He's not going to beat out the other 3 guys for play time as far as getting snaps. But if you look at the Andy Reid, Matt Nagy offense, ideally you rotate backs and you play them to their strengths.
Right.
And this guy's when he's got the ball in his hand, he's pretty good. You just don't know about him as a receiver. So, but all the other 3 guys are good receivers. Cohen's a receiver, Montgomery's a receiver, and the guy they picked up who played with Kansas City, and he opted out last year. He's a receiver too.
Damian Williams.
David Williams. Yeah. So those guys are. This guy doesn't necessarily have to be a receiver. They got those guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I like about the pick is that now they've got some depth in that running back room. And so if Tariq isn't 100% ready by game 1, maybe they can bring him along slowly. Damian Williams, Khalil Herbert, Ryan Nall is still in the picture. And of course, David Montgomery. They've got 4 good solid backs there. And hopefully Tariq Cohen will be ready. So they'll have plenty of depth. That's a good thing.
Yeah, they signed a free agent that didn't chop liver either now.
Yeah, who is that again?
Marabelli from Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
He's like a Darren Sproles. He doesn't have that kind of speed.
Right.
He's another midget. He's 5'7". Now the politically correct people probably jump all over me. He's a small man. Okay, he's 5'7", but he's big. He's quick. The only thing is that you see him outside more than inside. But he's got great balance, great quickness to get the edge turn and catches the ball really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's going to be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Probably end up being a practice squad guy. Ryan Nall's a decent player, but I think, he just doesn't have the juice that these other guys have. So, he may be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, he's looking more like a fullback or U-back kind of player. And by the way, Artavius Pierce, a guy that you've been singing his praises as well, he's still on the roster.
Yeah, and he's a guy who can run too. He's a 4.41 guy.
Yeah, they got some speed, and that's great to see. All right, let's move on now to another 6th-round draft pick, number 221 overall, and that's the I got wide receiver here. Isn't he? No, he is wide receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Daz Newsome. Yes. Got him confused with Graham, who's next up.
Right.
Tell me what you know about Newsome.
Well, first thing I looked at was the numbers, and the numbers aren't impressive because his best 40 time was like 4.58 or 4.57, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you want faster, for a receiver. Then you put on the tape. And he plays 4.48, 4.45.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a lot faster than his time speed was. He's very explosive. But the important thing, especially for this, for the Bears at this point in the draft, is he can return punts.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
Okay, so and he's a good punt returner. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So he averaged just under 10 yards a return for North Carolina. He's got a lot of experience doing it. So he's going to be in the mix. He's probably going to be your fifth or sixth receiver. Forget they signed a guy, and yesterday they signed a guy, Bird. I don't know how to say his first name, Damari or Demiari.
Yeah, I saw your tweet on that. Yeah,
yeah. He's played in the league for 4 years. Unbelievable athlete. 4.28 in the 40, 42-inch vertical, 10.11 long jump, 6.63 cone, which is that's off the charts. But he's not a natural hands catcher. You'll see him double catch and body catch. Had his best year last year for the Patriots, caught 47 passes, but he's a returner. He could do punts and kickoffs. But when he's as a receiver, he's not going to go way out here and snatch the ball.
Yeah.
He's more within the confines of the body. He's got a lot smaller receiving radius.
There you go.
So he's a backup. Now he had to be a regular player for the Patriots because they just didn't have anybody last year. But his biggest asset for the Bears right now is he's going to be in competition to be that, with Newsome, to be that fifth or sixth receiver and a return guy.
Greg, are you hearing anything about Anthony Miller? There was talk that the McCaskey family wasn't happy with his actions during the playoff game and that they didn't want him on the roster. That, of course, is a news report, so take that with a grain of salt. But what does your gut feel tell you about Anthony Miller? He's still on the roster, but do you think
I think the fact that he's still on the roster means I was thinking about this the other day. I said him and Nagy probably had a little come to Jesus talk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on his last legs. I think if he was going to get traded, he would have already been traded. Now, could he get through the off-season program? I wanted to talk about the off-season program too a little bit.
Okay.
Well, I'll do it right now.
Okay.
The best thing that happened to the NFL was DeJuan James getting hurt yesterday.
Why is that?
He tore his Achilles working out on his own. He has a $10 million contract.
Oh my goodness!
He didn't get a penny of that $10 million.
Wow!
Had he tore his Achilles working out at the Broncos facility, he gets all $10 million.
Mm. So, do you think the Broncos are going to play hardball and then they're going to say, "Okay, we like you"?
They don't have to pay him.
Right? They don't. That's right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, if I tweeted out, he should sue the union. The union told me not to go in.
Yeah.
Tell the union to come up with the money.
Wow. That is so sad to see that he's not going to get a penny of that $10 million. But it is the union's negotiations that resulted in that.
Well, no, that wasn't a negotiation. They told him not to go because of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, that like, my opinion, that's bullshit. They went through all last year with it, and people are, nobody had a vaccination then. They all got vaccinations now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seems a little weird. All right, let's move on with the final 6th-round draft pick, and that's the cornerback out of Oregon, Thomas Graham Jr. What have you seen and heard about TGJ?
He opted out last year. And I think that had he played, when you look at his tape from 2019, 2018, he's a pretty good player.
Mm-hmm.
Cover man, play zone. He's got great ball skills.
Mm-hmm.
Saw it right there. I mean, he gets a ton of balls. He's got a bunch of interceptions and has a ton of pass breakups. He runs well, got decent size. He'll support the run. Another thing there, he saw that ball and he closed like a, real quickly. Had he played, not opted out, he might have been a 3rd, 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so and some of these guys that opted out got banged because of that. And personally, I think rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless he's a real star like Chase and Slater from Northwestern, you know,
Sure.
that
Sure.
then the NFL teams bang some of these guys and called it BS on them, and they slipped as far as where they went in the draft.
That there were a lot of teams that were basically saying we're not going to touch anybody that opted out, or at least there were a couple of teams that publicly said that, but it doesn't seem like that really bothered the Bears. That because of the Graham pick, as an example.
Yeah, but don't forget it's the 6th round.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you got a guy like I just said, if I'm correct in saying that based on his tape, he could have been a 3rd or 4th. Now you got a bargain.
Yeah, there you go. Well, do we have a bargain in round 7 with Khyiris Tonga, the defensive tackle out of BYU?
Yeah, I kind of like him. His arms are short, but you can get away with that on the nose. He's a nose tackle only. Strong, another guy, over 30 reps in the bench. I'll tell you, that's a common denominator. They got some strong dudes, including some of the guys they signed as free agents. Big, wide body, strong, not real tall. He gets a push, plays well against the run. Got a lot of tackles for loss. If you look at his stats, gets his, like he did there, he gets his hands up and blocks a bunch of kicks. I think he's got like close to a half a dozen or something. And he's not a starter. But you need somebody. He's a lot more athletic. They had Jenkins in there last year as a backup, and he had to start because Goldman wasn't there. And really, they had people playing out of place because they didn't have the true nose last year.
Right.
With Goldman out. And Jenkins had to play, and he's limited. He's not bad, but he's just limited. He's not the type of player you're really going to win with consistently. So I think this guy, he's going to be your backup at the nose. There might be games he doesn't dress because they only dress 5. That's with Pagano as the coordinator. Remains to be seen how they're going to dress guys this year. But in the past few years, they dressed 5 defensive linemen, and usually that backup nose was the odd man out. But it also depends on what you're trying to do defensively in each particular game, depending on the offense you're facing. So, I think he's going to be your last offensive lineman, but will make the club, or defensive lineman, but will make the club.
Right. The Factor asks, who was your favorite late round draft pick and why? Of these, the 5th, the 6th rounders, the 7th rounders, you got a favorite?
No, not yet. I mean, I got a favorite. He's a free agent. We'll talk about him in a minute.
Let's talk about them right now. Let's get to the topic of undrafted free agents. The Bears were among the teams that signed a boatload of free agents. There were some other teams that didn't really do so, as you mentioned earlier, didn't really sign a lot of undrafted free agents, but the Bears did. I couldn't fit them all on one page. So here's the first screen. Tell me which of these players you liked most of these undrafted.
Well, we talked about, I don't know if it's called Mirabelle or Mirabelli, but he's an interesting guy at running back, but he is small. But the next guy, Caleb Johnson,
right?
In my opinion, from what I've seen, he easily could have been drafted. Then I talked to a guy, a scout for another team last night, and he brought it up. I didn't bring it up. He goes, he signed a guy I really wanted bad. And I said, who's that? He said, Caleb Johnson. I said, I really like that guy. You put on the film, he's extremely instinctive. I never even heard of, I'll be honest, I never heard of Houston Baptist. Okay. At school I'd never been to, they've only been playing football a couple of years. And this guy says they're a renegade school, but this kid, he got to know this kid. He's a real good kid. He's from San Diego. Extremely instinctive. He's only about 225, but he's long, got long arms. He's strong. He'll get bigger. He'll probably, max out at about 232 to 235.
Mm-hmm.
He runs well. He's a 4.7 guy, but he plays fast because his instincts are so good.
Mm-hmm.
I can see he, very aggressive. Didn't see him much in coverage, so I don't know what he can do in coverage. Um, but I can see, as a rookie, he's going to be a backup, and looks like he could be a core special teams player.
Now, Danny Shimon was super excited out of the kid from Virginia, Charles Snowden, an edge player. I took a look at his highlight reel, and the guy reminds me so much of Leonard Floyd. He's
similar. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
6'6" guy, long and lean, probably a little bigger than Floyd. Floyd's combine weight was 243. 2.5 weeks later, his pro day, he was 230. Which means, he had a false combine weight. He probably drank a gallon of water before he got on the scale. And, smaller players have been known to do that because they don't have to do any running for 2 days and stuff. So they're going to pee it all out. So, but Floyd was one of them. He 2.5 weeks later, he's 12 pounds lighter than he was, or 13 pounds lighter than he was at the combine. And I've seen that happen, for years. But this guy, they got a similar body. This guy was a basketball player, turned football player. He's still raw, but he's got some traits. Now, is he good enough to make the team? It's probably borderline because he's not strong enough yet.
Right.
But he's got some outside pass rush skill. Once he gets off the block, he can close really quickly to the quarterback. He does have some moves. Probably going to be. In fact, the scout I talked to last night said the same thing. He really liked that guy too. So I think both of those two guys, one's an outside backer, edge guy, the other guy's an inside backer, they both got a chance. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to be surprised if Johnson doesn't make the team.
Interesting. So you're thinking you'll see him on that opening day roster?
Yes.
Okay, and Snowden, however you pronounce his name, maybe more so as a practice squad player, as some people.
I like I say, I think he's got to get stronger and more developed. Again, you don't know what he can do in coverage, and they got to be. And again, you got a new coordinator. You got to see what he's going to be asking those guys to do. Are they going to be dropping into coverage as much as they were with Pagano, or are they just going to be coming all the
time? Yeah, interesting. Somebody in the chat said that Ryan Pace said he talked to Gettleman the morning of the draft on that Thursday, and that's not atypical, right? I mean, that is typical. If you're interested in making a potential deal, you might call another GM hours before the draft and say, hey, I might be giving you a call, right?
Right. Well, and the days leading up. But I think the team that he was going after first and foremost was Denver. And George did not want to go below 15. Okay. And that goes back to, my theory is that I had going into the draft is that 20 was going to be too low. But you study the draft, you study where you think guys are going, and with the Giants don't make that trade if Philly doesn't take Smith. But Philly took Smith, and so Gettleman says, "Okay, I'll make the trade." Now Gettleman did a hell of a job. He got 3 picks in next year's draft between 2 trades.
Yeah. He's getting a lot of praise, Gettleman. I mean, here in Chicago, people are saying Gettleman got raped by Ryan Pace. Excuse the phrase there, but the national media is really applauding.
Oh, yeah. You use the formula. The Giants won the trade, but now you can look at this thing 2 ways. Some people say, and when I was working, and it's changed a little bit since then, is that when you trade a pick for the following year, it's discounted by a round. So a first next year is equal to a second this year
Mm-hmm.
because you're not getting paid right away. You've got to wait a year for the payment.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're saying, oh, first is a first,
Mm-hmm.
and you know you're gambling at where's that first going to be. You know, is it going to be a high first, a middle first, or a late first?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, but still, he's going to have 2 1s next year
Mm-hmm.
in a draft that's supposed to be better than this draft.
Yeah.
He's got the 4 next year, and he's got a pick. You know, that's from the Bears, and then he's got a pick from another team on another trade he made
Mm-hmm.
for a pick next year. So he's already got 3 extra picks going into next year's draft, and we haven't gotten into free agency yet and who they won, who they lost, and all that other stuff. So yeah, he did a good job. I've known Dave a long time. We're good
Mm-hmm.
friends, and you know, being that I worked for that organization for 17 years, I always want to see him do good, and I thought they did very well.
Interesting. All right. There are tons of questions in the chat room. So let me see if we can knock out a few of these for the good people who are joining us live. We got hundreds of people joining us live. Thank you all for tuning in. The Factor One says, what can you tell us about the cornerback Trey Roberson that the Bears acquired last season from the Canadian League? They released him and then brought him back. There was a lot of hype around him before.
They didn't release him. He got hurt.
He got hurt. You're absolutely right. There was a lot of hype around him before he got injured, and the Factor One wants to know, what do you know about Roberson?
He was a all-star corner in the Canadian League, but don't confuse the Canadian League with the NFL. Okay, so different caliber of football. You know, it's like the difference is like Division II to Power 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but a very good corner with great ball skills in the Canadian League. I think he went to Indiana State, didn't he?
Let me double check that. I can. Yeah. No, he went to Illinois State University.
Illinois State. Okay.
And Indiana. He went to both.
Okay.
Illinois State University and Indiana.
Okay. He did not time real good coming out.
Okay.
Could have had a bad day? Yeah. I think he timed like 4.58. Mm-hmm. You know, you want a corner a little faster than that. But his play in Canada was good. Well worth the signing. He just, you know, he got hurt. So you didn't get an opportunity to really see what he could do or not do last year. And on top of that, you had no preseason anyway. You know, this year you're going to have, they haven't announced how many games, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be 3.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. So going to be, and that's a topic we'll talk about in our future show is, you know, what the head coach should do in terms of giving some of these guys snaps. But let's get to the next.
Well, let's answer that part of that right now, especially with Fields. Like okay. Like I said earlier, the worst thing you can do is play him before he's ready.
Right.
And I heard on the Score yesterday, Dan Bernstein going, well, if he's everything they say he was, then he's supposed to be ready to start. That's bullshit. Mm-hmm. He started in college. College game is a different game. Don't forget, Matt Nagy came from Kansas City. He was Mahomes' coach as a rookie. Mahomes sat as a rookie. Mm-hmm. He didn't start a game until the last game of the year, and they had already clinched the playoffs.
Yep.
And they rested Smith, played him. He played in 2 other games. Mm-hmm. That were blowout games, and he got some snaps. So, you know, look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years behind Favre. People say, well, those were great quarterbacks in front of him. So what? They became better quarterbacks because they had that time to sit and learn. Right. You put a guy in too early and destroy his confidence, you might have a bust. Okay, so now, could he be ready the first game? Yeah, I mean, it depends how quickly he gets acclimated to the pro game, can read defenses. You know, everybody said one of the problems with Mitch was he struggled to read defenses.
Right.
Okay, well, you got to see how quickly Fields picks this stuff up.
Right.
My gut feeling is he's going to probably end up starting sometime around mid season. But we were talking about the schedule a second ago. I think a lot of it has got to have to do who the hell the Bears are playing in the first 4 games.
Right. Well, and we'll know that a week from today when the NFL schedule is released. A quick question for you regarding reps. Isn't it a bit of a conundrum then that the Bears are in? You want to give Justin Fields as many reps as possible so that he can get acclimated to the NFL game. But at the same time, you got a brand new quarterback in Andy Dalton, who you've said is your number 1 quarterback. So splitting reps between the franchise quarterback, Andy Dalton, and the number 1 quarterback for the upcoming season.
No, don't call Andy Dalton a franchise quarterback.
No, I was referring to
Yes.
Justin Fields. He's the franchise quarterback, so you got to give him reps, and then you got to give the number 1 quarterback, Andy Dalton, at least the number 1 for the start of the season.
Fields is going to get his rep. Now we're going to have preseason games this year.
Sure,
that's a given, and you're going to see. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they both play almost equal time. Fields would probably play more. Don't forget Bill Lazor coached Andy Dalton for I think 2 years.
Right.
Might have been 3, but at least 2 years at Cincinnati.
Right.
Lazor knows what Andy Dalton can do. And that's the whole reason they signed him. That relationship that Lazor had with Dalton was the whole key of going after that player as a free agent and signing him. And so, but it's only a 1-year deal. So you already know he's playing for somebody else next year. That's who's going to be the backup next year. And then you cross that bridge when you get to it. But it's now, could he come back to the backup? Sure, but he's probably going to want an opportunity to start somewhere. But I don't want to be one of those guys that are saying you got to get him out there right away, game 1. If he's ready to play, fine. But and there's only going to be a couple people who know that, and they're all in the coaching staff.
There you go. All right, Ravi asks, what do you think about Trevis Gibson coming out of the draft last year? He came out of Tulsa, and he was actually a 5th rounder. I thought it was a great pickup for a 5th round edge player. He saw very little action last season. What's your recollection of Gibson from the kid from Tulsa?
I liked him because he had some really good pass rush skills. Aggressive guy, could play in coverage. He has some pretty good people in front of him. So, I think this year, a lot of things, it was 5th round pick last year. This is the year you hope he does something. You learn as a rookie, and now you get acclimated, and now in your second camp. And don't forget, it's no preseason last year. So these guys didn't get an opportunity to play. When they went into a game, they were in a real game. The first time they step on a field, it's not like they had, 4 preseason games to get acclimated.
Next question I got is a good one here, and I lost it. Darn it. Let me scroll.
Well, you got one up here. Is Fields going to start week 1? I hope not.
Yeah.
If he's ready, I'm all for it. I just don't want to do it too soon.
Yeah. T. Rick says, how many starters did we get out of this draft and undrafted free agents? That is, of course, almost impossible to speculate on, but I'll rewrite the question.
You got 2 starters this year?
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay. Down the road, who knows?
Yeah.
If you get 3 starters out of a draft, you got a hell of a draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another question. This one from Mike. If Denver would have taken Justin Fields, do you think that the Bears would have taken Mac Jones? What is your opinion on Mac Jones?
I really like Mac Jones. The only difference between Mac Jones and those other guys is he doesn't have that. And he's not a statue. You watch the tape, he's a pretty good athlete. He's just not the rare athlete. Like Lance and Fields are freaks.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the number one guy, Lawrence, he's a freak too. Those guys are great athletes. And that's where the league is trending right now. But Jones is your prototypical pocket passer.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, he might be the number one pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the kind of quarterback you were looking for.
That was the mold. Yeah, exactly.
So he's still. I can't answer. I'm going to say, yeah, they would have taken him because they were going up to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
They would. They weren't going to come out of that empty-handed. They weren't moving up to take an offensive tackle.
Yeah. It would have been a disaster if they didn't come out of that first round with the quarterback, in my mind, because I got a feeling they went to the McCaskies and said, we're going to come out of this draft with a really good quarterback. We were giving up on Trubisky. We're moving on.
Well, yeah, but going back, they still had to make the deal. You had to have somebody going to make the deal with them, and the quarterback had to be there. It had to fall. Yep. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. If Trey Lance doesn't go 3, they might not get the quarterback.
Yep. H777 says he knows that you don't like to speculate, but what are your expectations for Jenkins' role this year? Now, you've said you think he's going to be the left tackle.
I think he's going to be the left tackle. I put it this way. It's his job to lose.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to prove he can't play it.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to say, well, you got to bring in a guy to replace Affetti. They just paid Affetti. They didn't give him a ton of money.
$5 million. That's not bad.
And no, it was. I looked it up. It's like $2.75 million.
Oh, okay. My bad.
No, I don't know. It might be a 2-year deal. I thought it was a 1-year deal. But if it's a 2-year deal, then it's a $5 million deal. But it's his money for this year between the bonus and the salary is $2.75 million.
All right.
And he played good football. When they moved him to right tackle, the whole, part of it was, and then put Mustafa at the center and Whitehair at guard. The whole offense changed as far as the run game and stuff. And he was a starter at right tackle for 4 years in Seattle. And they're a playoff team every year. He's not an all-pro. He's never going to be an all-pro, but he's a prototypical right tackle in the NFL.
Greg, Adam Schefter of ESPN says it's a $5 million contract for Affetti with 4.25 as the base salary.
Well, that's not what's showing on Over the Cap.
Okay, yeah, and so that could be different, but that was Adam Schefter's report.
Yeah, but Adam Schefter had there and what's showing on Over the Cap. Over the Cap, and I think Spot Track too are showing the same thing. Mm-hmm. His salary for this year is $2.75 million. Well, actually, $2.2 million with a $750,000 signing bonus.
Okay. Now, T. Rick wants to know about Allen Robinson. Why do you think that perhaps this contract hasn't been extended? It would probably help the cap situation if you extended A-Rob.
It will help the cap situation because they still haven't talked.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you think that perhaps they want more speed out of that position and they're just looking at A-Rob as kind of a 1-year rental kind of thing?
I don't know if I call it a rental. Well, no, I think they'd like the guy's a hell of a receiver. He's a legitimate number 1 NFL receiver. He's not a burner, but a lot of times your number 1 receiver isn't the burner.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd love to get a deal done. They want to get a deal done at their number, not the number the agent wants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to have gradually you got to have a meeting of minds. I mean, they could turn around and tag him again next year if they want, but the tag kills you on the cap.
Yep.
You could probably, by getting a deal done, you could probably save $4 or $5 million at least in his cap number this year. depending on the length of the contract and the amount of the bonus. So now cutting Leno got him money, but there's still and Leno's not cut yet. I mean, yeah, he's cut. He's not a Bear.
June 1st.
But you're not going to see that come off for another 25 days.
Right.
26 days. It doesn't come off the books. So, it could be a situation where they make some deals with some guys now to use that money, but they can't sign them until after June 1st.
Ronald Smith asks, are the Bears going to give Steven Denmark and Riley Ridley an opportunity? Those are the two guys that were drafted
Denmark's history.
2019 draft. So Denmark is now gone. Riley Ridley, who was the 4th round wide receiver out of Georgia, you think he's ever going to get an opportunity to play with Chicago Bears?
Well, he played a lot the last quarter of the season and actually didn't play too bad. Riley Ridley is a good route runner.
Yeah.
He's got very good hands. He's got no juice.
Yep.
He's not a speed guy. Not as fast as his brother. Will he get an opportunity? Yeah. Put it this way, Wims kept screwing up, and that gave Ridley. Wims is a better receiver, but he's, from the neck up, he's a knucklehead. He had a costly penalty, had a drop on a touchdown pass. It's right here. So I'm going to say, I believe he will. I just know when you look at the signings they signed that guy yesterday. They signed Goodwin a couple weeks ago. They want some juice.
Yep, they sure do. So overall, I'm going to have to ask you this question because it's asked all the time, and I know how much you're going to hate it. But how would you grade this draft just based on what you know about these players, what you've studied about, what you're hearing? How would you? Let's not say grade.
I don't grade drafts.
How would you characterize it then?
I thought it was a good draft. On paper, it's good. They haven't lined up and played a second yet. Okay, to me, it's an exercise of futility. It's the most worthless thing in the world. Every team in the National Football League thinks they had a real good draft, because they drafted off of their board. Okay, you're going to find out when camp starts, and then you're going to get guys. We talked about a few minutes about Gibson. Okay, a lot of times, I remember Marv Levy. I had a conversation with Marv years and years ago when I first came to Chicago and he was still in Buffalo. And, Marv said, I don't expect a thing out of a rookie. Anything I get from a rookie is a bonus. He goes, I do expect a lot in year 2. And so that's, your first year is you're learning, you're getting acclimated, you're learning to become a pro. And you take all the circumstances that we had in the 2020 season with COVID, the rookies, a guy like Mooney that you got everything out of him like that, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
So
really,
you expect some of these other guys, the middle and late round guys, to really kind of jump out now next year, take that next step. If they don't take that next step, then you made a mistake.
All right. Here's the draft, the 2019 draft. David Montgomery in the 3rd round, Riley Ridley in the 4th, Duke Shelley in the 6th, Kareth White and Denmark are no longer with the team.
Yeah, I have a feeling Shelley isn't going to be around either.
Oh, tell us why. Why.
I just think he's too limited. He's too short.
Yeah.
But, he was a 6th round pick. He's very sudden and he's fast, but, and he's going to be, is he better than Screen, whatever the hell his name was?
Buster Screen, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a hair, but you want better.
Yeah. You got to have better. I'm going to leave this. I could talk to you all for another 3 hours. Maybe we should do another show next week. So, but what do you think now?
Not next week. I got 3 depositions.
Oh my goodness! You want to share with people what that is?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so. But the cornerback defensive backfield
Means
position.
I'm going to make a lot of money next week. But
Good for you. Good for you. The defensive back position, those safeties and cornerbacks and the slot corner. I got to believe that every general manager, every pro personnel person, every college scout is putting a higher premium on those positions because of how the league has migrated toward just passing. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, your slot corner, your nickel corner, he's a starter now.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing 70% of the downs.
Yes, right.
Okay, 70, 75. And he might be starting off like an actual start, the first play, depending on who you're playing and what they come out with.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, generally speaking, if they're playing with 3 wideouts,
mm-hmm.
your third corner, your slot corner's playing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so that is what makes me worried about what is going on with the Chicago Bears. You've got last year's second-round draft pick, Jalen Johnson.
Right.
He's got skills. There's no doubt about it. He's a good player, but he's got an injury history with that shoulder. And then you've got Desmond Trufant, who is the likely other starter replacing Kyle Fuller or just being in the starting rotation. And he has had injuries.
Don't count out Burns now.
No, I was going to get to him, but
yeah, Burns got hurt in the preseason.
Right,
this guy started a lot of games for the Steelers.
It was a first-round draft pick for the
Steelers. Yeah, so
but there's a reason he's no longer on the Steelers.
I get that, but still, it's not because he didn't have talent. I can't give you the reason. I have to call up Kevin and say, Kevin, why'd you get rid of this guy? But he's got some good tape, and he's been a starter in the league. Look, you're having a drop off without Kyle Fuller. That's a given. But now you got to have, like I said before, be the third or fourth time I said it. Guys from last year's draft got to take a jump. They're expected to take a jump in year 2. You got Vildor. I really liked Vildor coming out. Now, Vildor's 5'11", but he's also got like 32.5-inch arms, which makes him over 6 feet because his arm length is so long.
Yeah.
For a guy that short, for a guy 5'11". So, and you watch his college tape, ball skills, aggressive. I mean, he'll hit you in the mouth now. Mm-hmm. And so now you want him to take the next step. Okay, a little tentative last year. Got beat a couple times because he was tentative. Mm-hmm. But is he going to grow from that? And is this the year you're going to see something? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't shock me if you get in to game 1 and your 2 starting corners are those 2 guys. Johnson and Vildor.
Vildor, yes.
Okay, and then you got Desmond. Mm-hmm. Inside.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. I didn't think about Trufant going inside, but
I think he's got experience at that. Or you have the other way around. Trufant's outside and Vildor's inside.
Right.
But I want somebody better than, I don't want a 5'8" guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me. I don't like 5'8" corners.
Right. And I think, one of the best questions asked at the press conference on Saturday when Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy met the media, Hub Arkish asked, are you still looking at street veterans as potential signing? And Ryan Pace said, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got our eye on a few guys. We got our eye on guys who could be cut. We even have our eye on guys as potential trade candidates. So Ryan Pace is not done with player acquisition. So we'll see.
And don't forget, starting yesterday, mm-hmm. any veteran you sign now is not in the compensatory picking formula,
right?
Evaluation. That ended with the close of business on Monday.
That is huge.
So now, yeah, so it doesn't. I don't know. I think they ended up as a wash, and they're not going to get any picks anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it still doesn't. Another team. That's why you saw the Ravens signing the big tackle yesterday. They had that deal done 10 days ago.
That's the way it works in the NFL, and nobody knows it better than Greg Gabriel. We are blessed to have your presence here at the Barroom Network, Greg. Tons of people just paying you compliments left and right. They love it when you're on the air. So we've got to do this soon. You let me know when, and we'll make it happen. Good luck with the work that you're doing next week. And that's all we're going to say. It's a secret. I don't know anything about it. I know that you've got a secret. So maybe you could talk about it someday in your memoirs. You ever thought about writing your memoirs? That would be a fascinating book.
People tell me to write a book all the time because I got so many stories.
Yeah. What about it?
You got to take so long. You got to sit down and.
It's a process.
Know my problem is they come to my mind spontaneously.
Yeah, sure.
And then I don't write them down.
Mm-hmm.
The memories.
Right.
Like last week, some of the George Young stories. In fact, I had another one with George, and it's just on my career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 1984. I'm working for National Football Scouting. I'm like one of their Midwest scouts.
Mm-hmm.
I had Indiana, Michigan, Ohio,
mm-hmm.
and Western Pennsylvania, Western New York was my main area for national scouting that fall. So I go to a Purdue game, and I'd been out on the road for about 10 days, so I was going home.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a puddle jumper from West Lafayette up to Chicago, and then catch a flight to Buffalo, where I live. So I'm at the airport, and I see in one of the newsstands George Young reading a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know who he is. He doesn't have a freaking clue who I am. But I walk up to George, and I introduce myself. I said, I'm the new area scout for National Scouting. The Giants were in National Scouting. For this area, coming from Purdue. And he was in the airport because he was coming from Notre Dame. He was at the Notre Dame game that day, and then flying back to New Jersey. The Giants had a home game.
Uh-huh.
We ended up talking for about 40 minutes. Great
mm-hmm.
conversation. And he's, picking my brain like any GM would do on the players in my area, what I think. Well, I didn't think anything of that after that. I was glad I did it, and it took a little balls on my part to even do it. I was a little, bold walking up to a GM, and I'm a, rookie scout, rookie full-time scout. I worked part-time for Buffalo for 3 years before that. But 2 months later, this was in October.
Mm-hmm.
2 months later, we're at the National Scouting fall meetings where we give our reports on all the players to the team. First day I'm there, George comes up and hires me.
How about that?
So I don't make that meeting.
Yeah.
I don't go up to him and meet him in the airport at O'Hare and introduce myself. I never go to the Giants for 17 years.
How about that? The lesson is for all of you people, whether you're in the scouting business or not, don't hesitate to make that move. Nobody can be the best agent for yourself than yourself. Greg, again, thank you very much for doing this. We'll talk soon and get you back on. We'll talk about your memories. We'll talk about the upcoming season. The OTAs are coming up. The Bears are probably going to make some more acquisitions. We'll love your assessment on that. On that. So we'll talk again very, very soon. Okay, brother?
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.